I guess I'd start with introducing. This is Joe, and where this all began was last week, and I had a phone conversation with Joe because I found out that within my role, that's pretty much coming to an end. So when you need to look for new positions, you want to position yourself the right way. So LinkedIn being one of those channels, I reached out to Joe, and that conversation really fast turnaround from being about me to we discussed how many other people this may be affecting, and it might be you. So Joe was really keen to get on board. So Joe, thank you for joining us, and thanks for your enthusiasm on the call. We've had some interesting conversations so far, so I'm really looking forward to this session.
Yeah, no problems at all. I'm just glad we could get there in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I guess before you go any further, it's probably fitting for me to tell the group a little bit about who you are and what you do. So Joe, I met Joe through a business that I was working in, and she's a lead trainer, does a lot of work in the business world. So Joe, I've got a few notes here, so excuse my turning of my head, but work in a lot of business circles in WA. You're the only LinkedIn professional out of Australia to ever present at the Social Media Marketing World Conference in the US, which is a big deal. And, at one point there in 2018, you were ranked as the number 2 LinkedIn expert in Australasia. So that's a really big deal. So we're grateful to have you here, Joe. So thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad we could get there with the technical challenges. I think because of the current environment, everybody's using all the live streamings and, all the tools. So it's a bit,
I do say this is the busiest time of night, and that's why I thought it's a great way to capture people, but not realizing that it's also going to ruin the bandwidth. But before we go any further with the chit chat, I know that you've prepared some slides for us. So the things that we're going to touch on tonight are both give you a bit of a conceptual idea, but also a couple of things that you can do right away and right now. I'm throwing myself in the deep end here and exposing my poor LinkedIn profile, as Joe's going to use that as a bit of a demonstration. So, very vulnerable on that one, but that's okay. It's the best way to learn. And you discussed earlier that you're going to talk about how it works as one point, do a demo as we just discussed on my profile, and then 3 real key areas being the building credibility, visual branding, and also how to use your headline the right way. And then we're going to open up to some questions. So if you've got questions, post them on the Facebook page, and we'll get around to those at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Joe, and lead you in.
Yeah, no problems at all. Okay, so we're going to be talking about LinkedIn, particularly right now as careers are being disrupted, pretty much overnight, things are just happening. So it's a really good time to focus on LinkedIn. And I've been doing this for about 10 years, sort of helping people with LinkedIn and getting deeper and deeper down the LinkedIn rabbit warren. But what I love about LinkedIn is it's less of a distraction in terms of, when you're on LinkedIn and other tools like Facebook. And it's all about career and business and professional networking. So really powerful tool. But particularly now, because I think the more disruptive and physically isolated we become because of social distancing, we can become socially close using tools like LinkedIn for your career. So I just want to start with just a bit of a map in terms of how LinkedIn works, because if you get clear on just how it works and the value, you understand why it's worth investing some time in. So let me move forward. There we go. So this is you at the center. So this is just a map of how it works. So it works in 3 degrees. So you're at the center. So let's put me at the center. So I'm at the center. I'm connected to you, Paul. So you're my first level connection. And you've got connections who are your first level connection. They become my second level. And their first level connections become my third level. So why this is really important before we get started is that when you start getting active on LinkedIn and engaging with people, then you've got exposure to the connections of the person who you're engaging with. So for instance, if I shared an update on LinkedIn about this event or something I'm doing, and Paul, you decided to comment on it, you're actually exposing my update, my post, to your network. Now, if they decide to comment on it, they're exposing it to their network. So that's how you can reach more people. So it's important to think about, well, if you are starting to use LinkedIn, particularly if you're commenting on other people's stuff, which I really recommend you do, particularly now when we're not as connected as we usually are in person, you can leverage each other's networks, particularly in this community. So other people on the MBA program, people that have been there before you, people that are going through it, you know, it's about helping each other. And you can do that through engaging on LinkedIn. But the more engaged you are, the more visible you are, and therefore your profile, you want to have it up to date and a good reflection as to who you are. So if you think about how right now, if you were to look at your LinkedIn profile, you know, are you kind of cringing and thinking, oh, it's not up to date, it's not representing you well? And I know, Paul, you've done a bit of work on yours after our chat last week. So it's not, you know,
just a little.
There. So you think about in a snapshot, particularly on mobile, because a lot of us are using the mobile app, but we also, you know, on desktop, it needs to look good as well. But you want to make sure that in seconds you can communicate the value you bring, so people understand who you are, what you do, and what value you offer. So I'm going to go through start with the headline formula. Now, let me just go back a minute. The headline is the most important piece of text, and that's this bit of text right here under your name. So mine's got, you know, LinkedIn training and social marketing strategy. So that's the headline. It's kind of like an elevator pitch. It's what you would say if you're introducing yourself at an event. And it's also what people are going to find on LinkedIn. And it follows you everywhere, because it's the thing that when you show up in search, so say recruiters are finding you in search, they're going to see your name, your headline, and your photo is the first things they see before they even get into your profile. So that's the only opportunity you've got to sell yourself and encourage people to click. Obviously, you want to have a photo as well that looks like you and that sort of thing, but the headline is key. So this is my framework. I mean, I've got various formulas to share on how to do it, but this is just one that can work. So I'll start with keyword-focused expertise. So what is it you actually do? What problem do you solve? And how would you put that together? And use the words that are in the jobs you're going for, or the words that if you're running a business, for instance, if your customers and clients are going to use when they're looking for you. Then you could add on to that, what outcome do you actually provide for them? Now, that might all be one sentence, but, you know, just keep those blocks in mind. And then you might add in your business name if you run a business, the business you work for, or what you actually do, like how you deliver your services. So if you're a coach, a consultant, are you a trainer, you know, all those sorts of things. So I'll just break down mine to show exactly, you know, where that all fits together. So LinkedIn training and social marketing strategy, that's my keyword focus expertise. It's what I do. Outcome is to future-proof your brand. And I do that obviously for, you know, businesses I work with, for students, for graduates, you know, and anywhere in between. So that's what I'm offering. Business name I don't use personally, but I'm using the name of my program. So I've got a coaching program called and a book that's coming out called Connectfluence. And then conference keynote speaker is what I want to be known for. So that's mine. Now, I'll just use another example, just so it's not just all about me, because that's not really useful. So keyword focus expertise in this case might be sustainability in leadership. Actually, there's a type of leaderships. It shouldn't have the S on the end. Leadership. Outcome, to create cultural change. And then business. Now, it all depends on where you are. If you're running, like I say, if you're running a consultancy, or are you an individual looking to be employed, then you might say what you actually are. So say you're on the MBA program now, you might put, you know, that you're whatever you are, a graduate in, depending on, you know, are you in industry already and, you know, continuing studies, or have you gone from one degree to doing an MBA? And you might put MBA on there as well once you've completed it, or you might say MBA candidate or something like that, if you think that's really important, if that's part of your selling point. So let's go
Jo,
into
can I just add to that,
now.
After our conversation, one of the things that I did, because I think sometimes trying to work that out even is a challenge, because, I mean, I work in sales, and sometimes one of the hardest things is to say yourself, you know, living in Australia, where generally tall poppy sort of taught not to be too self-promotive. So what I did for mine and the change that I've made there, and that's still going to need some work, because I'm not 100% sure that that's right. But what I did is I found some people that are in the space that I want to be in, and I went and researched theirs and had a look at some of their keywords and just modeled that over a little, and I found that helped.
Yeah, perfect. So, and one of the things I teach people is how to use LinkedIn effectively is search. Like, it's quite a powerful search engine. I mean, it is the largest professional network. It's full of people, jobs, company's content. And in the search bar at the top, if you know how to search properly and using the right words, you'll find the right people. And it might just be even the people you start to connect to, and who's coming up in the home feed, who do you already know that's in the role that you're going for instance. So being inspired by what they've got in there, because you want to have words in your profile that match the job you're going to be going for if you're in the job market. And like I said, if you're in the business market, then you want to be using words that your clients or customers are going to be using to find you, and also that they understand what you do as well. Yeah. So here's Paul's. So well done for being a volunteer. So I know last week you had your title and the company you worked for, which is really much where you are right now. But your headline should be, when it's effective, it should be future focused, particularly when you're in the job market. So one of the things I see a mistake that people make is they might put seeking a new role, and that's all they put. And you think that's not helping them because there's no context there. So you want to make sure that if you're going to put like graduate seeking a role, put that at the very end, but have some context first. So say, what is it you do, the problem you solve, the outcome you provide, how you work, that sort of thing. So if you look at yours, leadership development and business strategist. So that's your keyword focus expertise, so to speak. So your outcome then to create cultural change. And then you've got MBA, professional coach. So, that's pretty good. But it's working on then, it's something that's you've got constantly going to tweak as you get more clear as to where you're going. Plus, you might decide there's a particular niche you want to delve into that fits who you are as well. Yeah. Now, if we look at the people to the right here under people also viewed, and just as a side note, I always recommend people turn this section off. You can go into me, settings and privacy, and then the fourth one down is people also viewed, and you simply turn it off to get rid of the little ads on your profile for other people. But if we use this as an example at the moment, so I'm glad you've got it turned on because I can now use these people. Now we've got Annie here. Now I don't know any of these people, so, no context here because you can see it says second, so I'm not connected to them. But Annie, I don't know. And it's got here trainer, speaker, coach, but I don't know what she does. So I know she's a trainer. That's great. But what does she train in? What does she coach in? Is she a football coach? Does she train and speak about football? Does she train and speak about leadership? Does she teach LinkedIn? Does she teach microbiology? I don't know. So, learn from what other people's, I wouldn't say mistakes, but it's just a missed opportunity. So put some context in your profile. So whatever you do and whatever your point of difference is. Like this one here, she's got MBA, so she's leading with her MBA, and then she's got medical sales, marketing, business development. So we know exactly what her value is. But, it's getting it clearer in a way that you're using the right words for your audience. And the next one down here, Colleen, CEO at Regional Development Australia. So that's kind of the default setting, is having your title and the company you work for. I mean, CEO, you kind of know what's involved with a CEO. But, what area... Yeah, I suppose she's not looking for a job at the moment, but what else could you have in there? So think about where you are now and what you can do. Does that help? Do you think that's useful?
Yeah, most definitely. I think, as you said to me on the phone the other week, is that you already have the job setting, which tells you what your job is. So really, why are you replicating that? If people want to see that, they can go and see it. So sell yourself first. Yeah.
So it's about creating a headline that leads, and like I said, it's a bit of like an elevator pitch or a positioning statement, whichever way you look at it. But just make sure it's got the words that match the role that you're looking to be in. Now, obviously, you can't say you're a brain surgeon if you're not a brain surgeon. That would be wrong. But if you've done a bit of work on looking at jobs and research, just make sure you're replicating the words. Cool.
Yeah, alrighty, that's great.
We'll move back along. So I will switch over again. So next we're going to move on to talk about how to build your credibility. Whoops, let me just go back to that. I'll just wait for the slides to catch up. Hopefully that's on screen now. So building your credibility, because now someone's found you and now they're looking at your profile. So there's certain parts of your profile you want to use to tell your story. Now, there's the About section, firstly. That's not on this screen, but the About section is where you introduce yourself, where you're going, your big vision, your purpose, what's driving you, that sort of thing. But the other parts of profile is for credibility, particularly, which are involving other people, you've got skills and endorsements and recommendations. So the skills are things you add to your profile, and you want to focus on the main skills that you've got and the main skills that are in the roles that you're going for, or the skills of the services you provide clients if you're consulting or working with customers. And you want to have the top three, like on this profile here, it's got project management, strategic planning, and management. So they're the top three that this person wants to focus on. Now, if you click this show more link underneath, it's going to then unpack the rest of them. So make sure the three featured are highly relevant to your audience. And people can endorse you for those things as well. And this is where you can help each other out. If you've been on the MBA program together and you've seen each other's skills, why not help each other by endorsing each other? I mean, it's something you should do with authenticity, you know.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. But I think we all go into the MBA and with some form of skill set. So whilst you don't necessarily see them working with it, you get a sense that someone's quite qualified in different areas. So I think that's you use your networks.
Yeah, absolutely. Then taking it up a notch and adding a bit more credibility is recommendations. Now, these are difficult to come by if you don't ask, because if you just wait, people don't tend to recommend you. And I teach people how to give them, and I go through my frameworks, and even then I still often have to ask for them because people don't naturally go and do that. They might say how, you know, they might be comfortable saying how fantastic you are or, you know, everything you've done. But if you ask them, it goes on your profile. It also goes on their profile. Because if you look here on this example, it's got received and given. So, this person's received 5, but they've also given 9. And that shows up. So you can see, you can sort of get an insight into who the person is. So think about in your network, who could you give a recommendation to? Who's done some awesome work for you or really helped you out? But don't give someone a recommendation in order to receive it back, because that's not what it's about. But it's
Joe,
about,
just on that as well, sorry, if you see my hand flying, I've got a fly around me, so I'm not just swatting things for no reason. Been looking silly. But just on that, because I generally find that, and I'm going to say more so in males that I know, tend to find when it comes to recommendations that they say, I don't really know what to say, or I don't really know how to say it. So what are your thoughts on when you do ask for recommendations, someone's willing to give it, but they're not really sure on what to say? I've heard before that it's maybe a good idea to write them something that, or have a conversation with them and get it out of them and write it for them if you're comfortable doing that. Then to share it back and say, hey, you okay if this is the wording?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, if you think about it, if you say to someone, can you write me a recommendation? And if you send it through LinkedIn, like if you do it through your profile or theirs, and what it puts in that placeholder text, it says, can you recommend me? Now, if I ask you for a recommendation, now I've given you a problem and you've got to get your creative hat on and think about something to write. Plus, you got to find the time and all that sort of stuff. So to make it easier, if someone's already verbally said something to you, you could sort of put it into words and give it to them in the message and say, I'd love a recommendation. You said blah blah blah. Would you mind putting something like this together? Now you've actually made half the job done, and it's, once again, it's authentic because it's their words. They're just now finishing it off. The other way to do it is to ask questions, and this is what I tend to do. So if I've delivered a keynote presentation at a conference, for instance, I might ask a couple of people there and say, what was the biggest takeaway from working with me, or for being in the session? What's the number one, your biggest pain point that was solved? Or I might say, why should others work with me? Things like that. So think about it in your situation. If you can ask a couple of questions, you've now given someone a frame for the solution, and they can answer questions. It just makes it so much easier. And then you get something useful rather than, Bob's a great work, a great blah, 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 because that's not helpful at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess similar to what you said with the headline, you want it to have those keywords in it that sell you. You don't just want to have, hey, worked with him once, he's a great leader, for example. Yeah.
So this example here, this is from a colleague of mine, Lockie, who's a graduate from ECU, I think. So on his, he's got, as a student group leader of China study tour, blah, blah, blah. So he's asked for a recommendation for someone for a very specific thing. And I've worked with him, so he knows how to ask for them. But then you get exactly what you need. And if you ask them to mention certain things, so if something's really important to your career or the role you're going for, ask them to mention those things. Just makes it easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So then the third part is the experience section, which is pretty much right at the top. Much easier to write than the about section. And this is where you're essentially listing your jobs in reverse order. So rather than just putting your job title and company, you want to unpack, well, what did you do in that role? What outcomes did you provide? What difference did you make? Now, if you're a student and you're just starting your career, so you're just, coming out of studying, then now the reason I've got this on screen here is this is Lockie, he's about 23. So, he's been studying. But what he's done is he's done some volunteer work. So you can see down here, PMI Western Australia chapter, he was the secretary and the event director. That's actually how I met him. So getting involved in committees and volunteer work, there is a section for volunteering, but if you haven't got much work experience, look at that and putting it in the main experience and look at, the difference you made there and talk about the projects you're involved in, that sort of thing. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I'm glad we're covering tonight, because I, for example, have got in my experience, which I don't need to fill because there's plenty of roles in there, but I did a year of volunteering as a coach for Subiaco women's footy team in the Waffle over here. And I've actually put that into the experience. So I should actually shove that into the volunteering section and move it out, declutter it. And I guess then it looks like you've got experience and you've got the volunteering element as well. And it just structures it a lot better. Yeah.
And the volunteering section, I mean, you've got experience education. So education, definitely put your MBA in there and anything else. So they're yours. But the volunteering section allows you to have, it gives you an extra bit of real estate, but also it allows you to separate out things, because you might put your sort of more direct work experience type of volunteering under experience. And then anything that's more community, you might put under volunteering. So if you're a sports coach or a volunteer firefighter, or I don't know, you're involved in Rotary, something like that, you might put that under volunteering. So it depends. And the more experience you get, you might then move things out into the other section, just to so that would probably serve well, because the footy coach, well, it shows a lot about who you are. It probably would be nice to have that under the volunteering, just to highlight it as a separate thing.
Yes, most definitely. And I'm glaringly obvious on the remainder of just having my title, and that's about it. So, that needs to be filled.
Yeah. And also, just a side one with titles. I mean, yours is pretty good, but sometimes people have, where the title here, where it's got relationship manager, sometimes people might have a director or partner or assistant or consultant or something that's quite vague, but there's no context once again. So think about where you're going. So the title in LinkedIn doesn't have to be the title on your job description, in the job you had. So if you were, I don't know, a receptionist, but you were doing a lot of marketing in that role, then why not call yourself a marketing assistant or something? If you've actually got the skills, you don't have to stick to what that job is. So you can get a little. I guess
the title is given to you by the company, and in a different company, it's going to be a completely different title. So you've got that. As long as you say it still has to be authentic. Well,
that's right. And like I said, often, particularly in a small company, and you've got a particular role, often you start adding things to that role that are nothing to do with the role in essence. So you don't want to sell yourself short. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, and then the third one is visual branding. So having that profile banner at the top. So I've talked about profile photo. That's what people see first, your name, your photo, and your headline. If you've got no photo in your profile, and I use this analogy a lot, it's kind of like you're networking with a bag on your head. So when I speak at conferences, I usually get volunteers on stage and get them to put a paper bag on their head just to make a point. Because, we connect through, and we can see each other. So if we were running this session and we weren't on webcam, I mean, it is small on this particular app, but at least we can see each other, or you can build that connection with someone. And you want to make sure your photo looks like you, so people recognize you. Obviously, your photo, it depends on when it was taken and who took it. It could be professional. I mean, mine is a professional photographer took it. And that's me on a good day when I've actually styled my hair. Today it's the evening, and a bit more cash. But as long as it does look like you and it's not 10 years old and, you haven't changed completely. And this is Lockie that I'd mentioned
before.
Well,
my photo still got me when I had hair, so I'm being reluctant to update that one.
And that's always a sore spot, I think, for guys, as the hair starts disappearing. But at the end of the day, you look the way you look and you want to be recognizable.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it breeds trust. Now, if you're a student, I mean, Lockie here, like I said, is now a graduate, but he's had this photo for a while. So even though he was studying, he still had a photo that looked professional. Because you've got to think about if you're meeting someone for a role, how would you dress for that meeting? And that's kind of how you want to look on LinkedIn. So you don't want to use a photo, that should be on Facebook. A photo from the weekend, partying, drinking, whatever. And if you're working from home right now because, or you're remote studying, you don't want a photo of you, in your pajamas kind of thing. So keep it professional. But you don't have to get a professional photographer to take your photo, unless you've got a budget for it. But right now, it's probably not priority. If you've got a smartphone, they've got really good cameras in. So,
Yeah, I once heard a good analogy on that one, Joe, which was it was the wedding. It was don't wear the nightclub dress to the wedding.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. Yeah, so it's dress the part. Now, if you want to add a bit more personality to your profile, because LinkedIn is a lot of text, this background image at the top is where you do that. Now, I'm saying you could add personality. You could add your geographical location. So Lockie's got a photo of Perth. He was in Singapore for 6 months, and I think he did have this photo of Singapore for a while, so he's changed it back to Perth. Mine, obviously, I'm in business and I've got multiple projects I'm involved with. And one thing about me is I do change my hair color a fair bit. So, it's been bright pink, been red, purple, blue, somewhere along that spectrum. So I've got multiple photos on mine showing me in action doing what I do, but also with different hair colors. Because that way, if my hair isn't blue, and right now it's quite dark and it sort of needs brightening up, if I've got red hair, for instance, I want to make sure I look like my profile. But I've also created this with 4 images to show that I speak, that I train. So there's a photo of me at Social Media Marketing World, the conference that you mentioned. There's I've got a YouTube channel with a colleague, so that's a photo we had as part of our our channel shoot. So and then the other thing I've got here is logos. So logos for my brand, for our YouTube channel, for an event that I run, and all sorts of things. And I created this in Canva. So have you heard of Canva, Paul?
Yes. Yeah. I haven't used it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, brilliant tool.
Clearly,
and you
I
can get away
with it.
This is where you can get creative. So with Lockie's example, he's got one photo, he's uploaded it, positioned it, to fit the profile. Done, nice and easy. If you want to create something a bit more branded, or you want to do some like collages or whatever, you could use your design tools. But Canva's great because it's free and it's so easy to use. There's templates and it's all there. So I've created mine in Canva, and that's the image size at the top there. So in Canva, there is an option to have a LinkedIn banner, but that's not this banner. It's the wrong size for your profile. It's a bit confusing, misleading. So you have to go into custom image and put in the dimensions of 1584 by 396. So super easy. Now, if you don't have a photo, I'm just going to use you as an example again, Paul, and I'm glad you haven't got one yet. So when it catches up, if your profile at the top has this blue image here, it looks pretty funky, but I kind of liken it to you bought a photo frame and you've got the standard photo in. It's you haven't put a photo in the frame yet.
Most definitely.
So missed opportunity. So you could create something, a photo of you in action, a photo of the place you work. It could be you doing something outside of work. So if you're into snowboarding or you're into extreme mountain biking, there's nothing wrong with putting a photo of you doing that, because it shows there's more to you and it shows a bit more of personality. Or it could be you, teaching or training, or it could be an image of the industry you work in. So if you're in the medical sector, something that says medical, something that says IT, something that says mining, so you can be quite diverse here. So yeah, get creative. So have you got an idea what you're going to put in there, Paul?
Yeah, I do like the idea of multiple pictures, because I think I think once you've got your headline sitting there and it talks a bit about you, I think the capture is the photo they do say, you know, an image says in, you know, 1,000 words or whatever it is. So if it talks to a couple of key points of your personality and shows maybe the professional side and then a few other elements, then that's kind of where I'm thinking at the moment. And then I'll probably check in with you and change it.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, it's easy to do, and you can make it as complicated as you like. But, you know, one photo, or create something with multiple photos in, a bit of fun. You know, you could have a photo, a banner like mine with 4 images, and one could be you doing something out of work. Maybe you're into, I don't know, maybe into, well, coaching footy. Maybe there's a photo of you coaching. Maybe there's a photo of you doing something that says leadership. Actually, coaching does say leadership anyway, but something else around leadership, something else, if you know, and then multiple things that just kind of piece it all together like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, well, I think that's a key point. When I said the multiple sides of you, centered around the same theme. So that was a thought, was maybe one of the coaching photos up there, because it even with leadership, coaching is leadership. Yeah. So it just shows that you're not just doing it in work, that you're doing it in other areas of your life as well. And so therefore just demonstrating that that's you, who you are as a whole. So that was, so that's good to hear.
Yeah. And it's less academic then. It actually shows it in practice across a different dimension. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah. So they're the 3 things I wanted to share. Now, obviously I could talk about LinkedIn for days. But I thought I'd just share this slide, because this is actually generally how I start my presentation. So the 3 areas of LinkedIn I focus on are what I like to call energizing your presence, which is building your profile. That's who you are, who you're being. And that's where, so today there's homework. I hope Paul said there was going to be homework.
I didn't even know about that. Deep breath.
Yes. Work on your profile. So think about the things we've covered today and how you can build it. Now, the other part is, you know, establishing your credibility. And some of that comes from what's in your profile, but also it comes from what you're doing. And this is where the content comes in. So starting to engage with other people and sharing your thoughts and ideas. And then the final one is earning influence, particularly if you're, you know, in the job market. Well, to be seen as influential in your space and someone with credibility, you know, you need to be engaging with other people, engaging with companies that you'd like to work with, looking for the decision makers at those organizations and looking at their activity on their profile, and then start, you know, joining that conversation and say something, you know, intelligent and thoughtful, rather than just saying great post or yeah, I agree, because you've closed a conversation there. So think about how you can open it up.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And I've seen a few little strategies on that before, but I think the one key thing around that as well that I've taken out of other key influence is that it's like anything. It's the continuous getting onto the page and following these people and continually doing it. But you know, it's not, you can't do it and drop for a week and then come back a month later or whatever that is. You just those small bits, just plug away each day, and that's how you, I guess, build your network. So
yeah, and your network is key right now, particularly as we become a little bit more isolated. So to maintain those relationships, you know, you start finding people and start engaging with them and connecting to them, so that they know who you are, so that when things, you know, the job market comes back to life, because, you know, I think some of it is a little bit shaky at the moment, that you stay top of mind, so that when things start to change, you're there, you know.
Yeah, well, I think that comes back to our original conversation and why we wanted to do this as well. That yes, it's people like myself who are finding the challenge right now, maybe, and needing to find new opportunities. And I don't have an excuse not to do your homework, because I finished my last class of the MBA last Saturday, so I've got time free. But I think what it is about, it's yes, there's panic and yes, there's fear right now. But even if you're not, and even if you're in a role, at some point you may be looking at something. So it's making sure that when the dust clears, you're the person who's already ready. You're not catching up at that point. So and I think that you've gone through some really good points for us there, and because I'm just having a look at some of the questions that we had around, you know, what is the thing to transform you from a standard profile to a standout profile, and what are the main points around that? And that was from Anthony Booth, and I think you've touched on that. And sometimes these things seem a bit bigger than what they are to the untrained eye, and really you simplified that, and that's 4 key things I think you put in straight away that we can easily walk away and do. And it just takes a little bit of a thought process. And I think the other discussion that we've had throughout this as well is trial and error. you can keep updating. It's not hard to edit. So don't be afraid to get it wrong straight away. More often than not, probably no one's watching when you get it wrong the first time anyway. So just keep working with it.
Yeah. And I mentioned homework. This is actually the homework. So I've got a profile blueprint which has got some different formulas to write your headline if that one doesn't fit your, the way you work. But pretty much I use this framework when I work with clients. So it's all my frameworks for writing your about section, your experience section, some tips and tricks of what to do. So that's the link to get it. You get it automatically through my email list. And then if you don't want to be on my email list, you just unsubscribe. So it's nice and easy, but that's the homework.
Fantastic. Now,
also,
Joe, sorry, you were going, when we were talking, I'm not sure if this is it or you're just about, I've interrupted you before you went into what I'm going to ask, but you did say that you had something that you were going to give away to, I guess, anyone who views this video, that you normally have a fee around, and you were just going to open that up and let people have access to it.
Yes, and that was a nice segue. So I've got a Job Seekers ebook that you can buy on my website, but I'm actually happy to share it with everybody because particularly right now, if it helps someone, start building their profile and fast tracking their career or getting career ready, then I'm very happy to share it. So I can share that Job Seekers ebook, and I can either you can get in touch with me, I'll share it that way, or maybe I'll post actually because this is being posted in the group. I'll share it in the group if you like. It's a PDF version, so I can put it in there as a document. So I'll do that just so it's there as a resource if you like. Is that cool?
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we're recording this anyway for the potential of putting it into some other platforms for, I guess, some of your own connections and my own connections. So for anyone who's outside of or probably should have set the scene for that earlier, for anyone who is watching this beyond tonight, this was posted in the UWA MBA group. If you're not a part of that, there's Joe's email on the screen, so you can either go to her direct, or if you want to come through me because you know me, my email's PM for Michael, ELLIS9@gmail.com. Email me direct, and I'm happy to put you in contact with Joe as well.
Yeah, so I'm happy to share that. And if you've got any questions, just ask them because I
was looking down at the page while we were going here to see whether live questions were coming through, but it kind of looked a bit odd with my head constantly turning away. So I didn't get a chance to check whether too many questions come through. But I think what we might do with that anyway, because I think we've been going for about 40 minutes, is if there are any questions there, Joe, you've been added to the page anyway. So you'll be on that for a little while. So we can I guess put even a Q&A thing together and maybe even share that, or I'm not sure how you want to do it, whether you want to respond direct on the page for a little bit, or people have got your email now, so if they know how to reach out to you, they can do that. So I think that's the best approach.
Do that, because you do realise we're missing Married at First Sight right now. Just saying.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't watch much TV, so sorry, Joe.
No, I don't watch a lot either, and I really shouldn't watch that show, but it's one of those shows that just, Well,
I was going to finish with a minute of crazy questions, and I just didn't have time to get around to it today, and I'm glad I didn't, because you've just opened yourself up anyway into one of those what I would call tragic TV shows.
I know, and I've just given away something about myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the secret. Sometimes I don't watch necessarily TV when it's scheduled, but I do catch up. So sometimes I do, if I'm doing something quite mundane, I might watch Married at First Sight on the other screen while I'm working. So do not judge me. You have to have some, balance. It's amusement.
Yeah, I think moving forward, I usually on the weekends tend to just sit in front of the TV when I've got a moment and watch whatever sport's on, but there's none at the moment. So who knows? My wife might convert me into, what is it, Beverly Hills Housewives or something that she watches. She likes all their tragic TV as well. So if I start talking about that, somebody, please, anyone slap me. I don't need to go there.
But if you do get downtime, rather than watching tragic TV,
we've got
go to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Go to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's a great place to hang out and learn, connect, and develop. And And feel free to connect to me if you're not already connected, and connect to Paul if you're not connected to Paul as well.
Yeah, and I think this is probably another good segue into obviously you being the first person I spoke to, and since then we've had conversations about other guests beyond here in terms of a few different areas career-wise and how that may help. And we're also talking about potential of having, if things go well and we get people with a good response and getting value out of it, we might even jump on and do a panel at some point. So at some point, I think we'll probably have you back because even tonight's focus, I think, was about how do you use your LinkedIn profile the right way to position yourself to be seen, but knowing full well that there are, you touched on it right at the end, other avenues there around how do you network better on LinkedIn, how do you do, so there's so many other functionalities behind it, and we haven't even scratched the surface there. So, we may be back again, Joe, to discuss some more tragic TV at some point.
Absolutely, and I love helping people, particularly people who are students or getting started or changing careers. And right now, and it also is another offer for anybody watching. If you're working on your profile and you want some feedback, just drop me a message. I'm happy to give you my opinion. I've got lots of them.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's what. Yeah, just be open. People are open. I think that's a great offer to take up. So, yeah, once again, we won't hold anyone up any longer. So, Joe, I really appreciate the conversation that we had about 5 days ago now, where this came about, and your openness and willingness to jump on and just help a community of people. So, yeah, really grateful for that, and really look forward to the next time we get together and do another one of these.
Yeah, very happy to help. Very happy to help.